Yo, thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. We greatly appreciate you guys being here. So in this video, we're going to kind of give you a brief overview of the class system in Ashes of Creation. Ashes of Creation has a very unique spin on the way they do their classes. So we wanted to kind of start a kind of a series diving into the classes that are in the game. But before we kind of dove into that series, we wanted to start off by giving an introduction of how the class system works. So classes in Ashes of Creation are actually broken down into archetypes. So whenever you first start the game, you're going to choose a primary archetype. And then whenever you hit level 25, you're going to choose a secondary archetype. And those two archetypes combined is what is considered your class as your character. So it's a little bit different take on that, the way the class system works. Red, what do you think about the way that that works, that you don't just choose a class from the get-go, but you have to choose an archetype, and then once you reach level 25, that's actually whenever your class is defined in the game?
Yeah, I think generally the idea behind the 8-class system, or the initial, where you pick a class out of one of 8 choices initially, and then go into your subclass at like 25 or whatever, I think has been done before by some MMOs. Archetype is the one that kind of, I guess, really like comes to mind thinking about it now. I mean, you just recently played Archetype, so that type of system I think is definitely doable, but I think it's gonna work, man. I'm excited about it overall, because dude, I'm all about like having the diversify 81, right? Or no, excuse me, 64 different classes running around the world is gonna be exciting, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So just as you mentioned, there are a total possibility of 64 classes in the game. So there's 8 primary archetypes, and then each of those primary archetypes can obviously have a secondary archetype. So the way it works is kind of a grid system. So it totals out to be 64 possible choices within the game. So as you level up within the game, you also receive skill points to learn new skills. However, your secondary archetype does not give you any additional abilities, but you can augment your primary abilities based on your secondary archetype. So I'm going to break that down real quick and give an example, because I know that's a little bit confusing. So I'm going to read off kind of a common example that has been given by the developers a whole lot to explain the system. So it says, if you were to choose a fighter as your primary archetype, okay, so that's what you would have chosen at the very beginning, and a mage is a secondary archetype, the fighter would then become a spell sword. So a fighter plus a mage is a spell sword. So the spell sword is then your class, right? So the spell sword is then your defined class. The combination then opens up augments that can be applied to skills in their primary skill tree. So like a fighter would have a rush skill that allows them to rush towards a target, and upon reaching the target, they deal an amount of damage with a chance to knock the target down. And a mage's escape augment can be applied to the rush skill, which would now teleport the player to the target, thus eliminating the charge time on the skill. So that's kind of how it would work. You would get additional abilities. You'd be able to augment your primary abilities based on the secondary archetype that you chose. So how do you think that system is going to play out within Ashes of Creation, Red?
Again, I know this is very like ambitious to most people, thinking that they're going to pull off, 64 classes with unique feels and everything like that. But I definitely think it's going to work, just because of the way they have it laid out. Now, like you mentioned before, the 8 base classes are basically how your class is going to be determined as far as your active abilities and everything like that. So then technically you really think about, well, there are, 8 classes. Isn't that bad? It isn't that hard to do. And then you start thinking about, oh, well, so now each of these different spells or abilities can be augmented in 8 different ways. Well, I think that is going to lead to a lot of unique builds and everything like that. But I also don't think it's too much to ask for either, because and I hate to go back to this again, but Archetype has like, I think 81 different combinations. Like it's basically you choose 3 different classes to build your subclass. So dude, I think the augmentation system is going to definitely diversify the way like a fighter looks from a different fighter. If you choose mage, or maybe you go fighter and just have that traditional like warrior type feel, they're going to play a lot different, I think, just because of the augmentation system and how that works.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I'm pretty excited about it because 64 classes, like you said, is a ton of variation within the game. And I think all MMOs need a lot of variation when it comes to class design and class build. Everybody running the same meta, it kind of gets stale after a little while. So hopefully this will be one of the things that kind of prevents that from happening in Ashes of Creation. I know one of the concerns, and this may have to be a completely separate topic and a video that we may do in the future, but is the discussion about balance whenever you have 64 classes in the game. So maybe we'll save that one for another time. This was supposed to be just an introduction to classes, so we'll stop right there. So Red, do you have anything else to add about just kind of how classes work initially in the game and just its introduction to the class system in Ashes of Creation?
Well, and again, I think a lot of MMOs are getting away from the class system. They're going into like a classless feel where you basically equip a weapon or a piece of gear or something like that and kind of head in the direction of just like kind of a mix and match, build your own class type system. I really do, as a player and on an individual basis, like the identity that a class system like this offers, man. I'm extremely excited about, I love that they have a different title for each combination. You know what I mean? I want to be able to say that I'm a soul bow or I'm a, you know what I mean? Or I'm a necromancer, or I'm an acolyte or whatever, dude. I think that's awesome. And me and you as PvP players, dude, I think that adds a feel, man. The identity that you can kind of have with your subclass and then going up against all these, like, the other 63 different subclasses in combat, like in open world PvP. Dude, I'm extremely excited about like just that, that meta, or that maybe the lack of a meta, because if there's so many different combinations, really excites me, dude.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I think having that many variations is going to be a great thing for the game. But that's kind of how the class system works. That's how it operates. You have primary archetype, secondary archetype. You add those together, and then you get your class. So you don't just pick a class from the get-go. So I hope some of you guys found this video very helpful and useful if you were kind of having a hard time understanding how the class system worked. This is kind of an introduction video of how it works. And later on, we're going to put out some videos that go into detail about some of the classes, the archetypes in Ashes of Creation. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll catch you. Oh, hey, hit the sub button and the like button. Ring the bell. Please. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.